Okay, so let's talk about the promises in the deep down, in the details. What are the promises and how they are working? So in JavaScript stack, I hope you are already familiar with this event loop. Whenever you see some kind of asynchronous situation, this event loop is getting executed. So event loop is just waiting for the task to get completed, which is actually talking to the file system, DB, or stuck with any other process. Now it is inside the event loop, it is running, so it will keep waiting until unless that process finish. When that process is finished, it will notify the process, it will notify that execution that this task is done. Now you can execute the callback. So this is being done, I mean a lot of being done in the Node.js code. Whenever it sees the asynchronous code, it is just firing that into the event queue, and from the event queue one by one we are processing that inside the event loop, and once they are done we are notifying that the callback. So event loop we are using to say that never block the IO operation. So because the Node.js is a non-blocking IO, it is putting, whenever you are reading a database, whenever you are reading a file, whenever you are talking to the MongoDB, any NoSQL database, just put the callback with it, so that we already know that it's a synchronous operation and there is a callback associated with it. So it will put that inside a event queue, read the data from MongoDB, come with the data, I will execute this callback to supply the data to that function. So here we are doing the same thing. This is, here we are passing this callback functions, we are calling it. So a lot of different examples you will be seeing throughout the sessions. So this is the callback on the callback. So this is called a nested callbacks. You are writing a callback inside a callback here. So you are firing the get products. These are the callbacks, which from where you are getting the result object and error object. So if here we will be checking if you got the result object, then for the you are iterating onto the result object, and then you are getting the individual product. Then you are passing the individual product to get the rates of that product. So get rates, you are passing the individual product, then getting the rates, then you are just putting the rates array, then again you are doing a for each loop, and you are just doing some check. So here you see the lot of things you are performing. First you are getting the product, then you are looping onto the product, then for each iteration you are again running the another asynchronous call to get the rates of the product. So this is the callback inside a call. So this sometimes it will generate the callback hell whenever you do a lot of nesting with the callback. So try to avoid the situation. We already have the fix for this, that we can address this kind of a callback or nesting of the asynchronous calls issue in a different ways. Like you can use async await of the ES7, you can use the promises, you can use a different library to address the same thing. So a lot of libraries are there and you can address it in the different situations, different ways. So what are the promises and what are the different implementations? So it's very easy question. Like you have, if you are Angular developer, you already using $q, okay, $q, and in the ES6 now we have a native promises. In the Node, obviously there are a lot of libraries which are supporting this, like RSVP and Promise A plus and Bluebird. A lot of libraries are there which are supporting the same thing. So in Angular we will be doing the same thing. We will be using the $q. Okay, $q, we will be creating the deferred object from the $q. Now based on the condition we will be resolving and rejecting this deferred object, deferred.resolve and deferred.reject, and based on that we will be just getting the output, because this particular function is returning a promise. Here we are checking, this is returning a promise. If this promise is resolved, then first callback will get executed after then is having two callbacks actually. First is success callback, another is a failure callback. So Angular promises look like this: $q.defer, you got the promise object, defer.promise object. Now either you can resolve it or either you can reject it based on the response or based on the conditions you are getting. So here you will be just promise dot then, if this is successful then you will get the value. So what we are saying, that this is just a test case you have written. This expect resolve value to be undefined, defer dot resolve to be this, then it should be to be undefined. Okay, this is just a test case written for the checking the promises. So in the Angular we will be using the $q. First we will get the deferred object, and then we will be returning the promise object from that function, and then you will be just doing a dot then onto that promise object. Then you will be writing the callback functions. Okay. So Angular there are two things. So Q and $q. Q is a concept of JavaScript. $q is inherited in the Angular. Angular's $q is tied to the scope. Angular make it as amazing to the test. $q is closer to the ES6. I mean, $q has a lot of similarities what we are doing in the ES6 native promises. So deferred methods. What are the deferred methods? One is a resolve and one is a reject and another is notify. We don't use a notify much, but resolve and reject we will be using. Resolve the derived promises with the value. If the value of rejection constructed via $q.reject, then promise will be rejected. Otherwise $q.resolve will be resolved, that promise will be resolved. So we will be creating the deferred object var deferred equal to $q.defer, and then deferred.resolve and deferred.reject. These are the two syntax we will be writing in our code to resolve the promises. Here we are deferred.promises method. Here we have these two things. So once we got the promise object from that function which is returning the ES6 promise or $q promise, now we just need to do a dot then onto that, fire the function called dot then. So first callback is a success callback, another callback is error callback. So in the ES6 promises we have the same kind of syntax, same as $q. It is also dealing with the same thing, $q reject and resolve, and then it is executing dot then. First callback is success, another callback is failure. So you can see this is how it is working. So promise equal to get products dot then, it is we are loading the rates and then load the tires. So here we got the promise object, promise dot then we are getting the function data and we are just putting console.log data. Okay, so promises in the ES6 will also be the same. We will be getting the get products, because if you see get products, it is firing this get product function. Get product function is just returning this HTTP. So these are the native promises. $HTTP in Angular also returns a promise. So $HTTP.get is returning a promise. I mean, this is a syntax which $HTTP is already coming with this syntactic sugar of the promises. Whenever you are firing $HTTP and returning it, it always return a promise. So get product is returning a promise. Now dot then first is a success callback. So if get product we are able to get the data, then we are executing the load rates. It is again returning the products. Okay, so if this is call as successful, then you will be able to execute load tiers. So this is, you can say, nested callbacks and promise chaining, where we are taking care of each and every. If first is successful, then we will execute the second. If second is successful, then we will execute third. So this is how you can modulate it. Var promises, get products, dot then, load rates, dot then, load tiers. So this is again returning a promise object, right? So this promise dot then, we will be able to get the data from like this. So a lot of things throughout the sessions we will be talking about the practical examples from the Angular, from the Node, from the jQuery, from the ES6 of these promises. So follow along with me. Thanks everyone.